this is what we'll need. An audio interface that has at least 2 input ports and 4 output ports, and they support TRS ports for the in and out. So this Scarlett Solo won't work out nicely since it only has 1 input for TRS. Second thing you'll need will be the cables, whether they be TRS to TRS, TRS to XLR male, TRS to XLR female, or XLR to XLR. Whatever you need for your chain, you have to have them. And speaking of the chain, you'll need the hardware itself, the ones that you'll be using. You'll also need a meter VST plugin, which is usually free. I have one in the description, more on that later. You'll also need a sine wave or a tone generator, which we do have in FL Studio. And the last thing you will need is patience. Patience to watch the video and patience to set things up. Now, I do have an audio interface made for mastering, but for this video, I'll use the Focusrite Clarett 8 Pre-USB that has 18 inputs and 20 outputs for this demonstration. It is very important that we use TRS cables for the input of the audio interface. The reason being, the TRS port will bypass any built-in preamp and go straight into the DAC, digital audio conversion. With that reason, we do also need to turn off any phantom power, any 48V symbol. Make sure it's off because we won't be needing that. Last thing to note is that we usually keep output 1 and 2 for the master output in FL Studio. If you own a Scarlett 2i4, you'll see that you have this option to set your headphone to output 3 and 4. You're going to want to switch it to 3 and 4 and make sure that your master in FL Studio goes to out 3 and 4 so that we can use the out 1 and 2 for the gear. I want the signal to leave my audio interface and go into this solid state Logic Fusion and return back home to the audio interface. Notice the XLR ports for the Fusion. For that, we're going to need a TRS to XLR male and TRS to XLR female, 2 of each. I want the signal to leave my audio interface. I'll use output 1 and 2 for this example, so those who are using the 2i4 or the 2 input 4 output devices can relate. So, sound goes out of 1 and 2. Next, we want it to go into in to the SSL Fusion. So it goes into the input of the device. I'm sure y'all know that though, right? After the signal is processed through the Fusion, we want it to go out and go home into the audio interface. So we will use this XLR female to TRS cables to plug into the output of the Fusion and go into the input of the audio interface. It does not matter which input you are using as long as it is linked together. So it's either 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7, 8. You don't want to plug one into 5 and the other into 8. Don't be that guy. And just like that, we successfully set up the connection. Let me go ahead and demonstrate the signal being processed. Spending like a millionaire. Debt is piling up, but you don't even care. Why worry about what doesn't make you here? Life for real. Now, it's not balanced, but we'll get into that in a bit. Now, if you have mastering gear or want to stack the gear together, instead of sending the out of the Fusion into the in of the audio interface, we will take the out and put it into another piece of gear. And from the final piece of gear being used in the chain, then we'll send that out into the input of the audio interface. If you have more gear that you want to be processed one at a time, now is the time to set that up. Same way we did with this one, but with another linked output and another linked input. So check this out. I now have the SSL Fusion in out 1 and 2 and going in to 3 and 4 on the audio interface. And I have this compressor with out 7/8 going into input 7/8 on the audio interface. So let's say I want my signal to be hardware compressed first, then come back into FL Studio. Hey, spending like a millionaire. Debt is piling up, but you don't even care. Why worry about what doesn't make you here? Life for real. There it is. Next, let's add a digital effect on the signal. A panamatic to visually show the signal on the Fusion's meter. And then send that signal to the Fusion. Spending like a millionaire. Debt is piling up, but you don't even care. you about what doesn't make you hear. Like for real, ay. You rather be like everybody else. Gaze up on the screen, they showing off their wealth. The bad days, they hiding for themselves. It's simple, Witcher Senpai. So as we saw there, we didn't exactly have the right levels to work with, and I bet you're probably wondering how I was able to send the signals through. Of course, make sure that your audio interface is active under the Options, Audio Settings tab for the in and out device. In FL Studio's mixer, we have this side here, the input, effects slot, and the out port. We also have this green line here. This is the track's routing. By default, everything goes into the master insert. It is very important that you remove the insert from the master. We don't want the dry signal to be sent over there, so we're going to click this off. While we're at it, let's name this insert Sound Out. Now remember I mentioned using output 3 and 4 for my headphones? Yeah, so in my case, I'll be switching the masters out to 3 and 4. If you're using output 1 and 2 as your main output for your headphones and your speakers, then you could leave this be. We want our signal to go out of this insert and into the gear. First off, let's use this kick loop. First, I'll route this kick loop into its own insert channel and name it. Next, take it off of the master and send it into the sound out insert. So now the kick loop will only be sent to the sound out. Might not hear anything at first, but that's because it's not routed to a output yet. Now, in the out section here, we want it to be sent to outputs 1 and 2. So click on 1 and 2. And now if we hit play, we can see on our Fusion device, we are getting the signals. Now we have to set up a return insert. Easily, get a new insert. I'll call it sound input. This one will keep the routing to the master insert since we are only using one hardware effect for now. For this one's in, we will set it to our input, which is 3 and 4. And now if we hit play, there we go. If you hit play and do not hear anything, you'll have to change this to on. More on this later, though. So how about the whole multiple hardware thing? Same situation, except if we want to send the signal that we got from the Fusion device into the compressor, we will have to remove that routing to the master and set this one's output to the hardware compressor, which is out 7 and 8. And lastly, set up another insert for input 7 and 8. You are able to add digital effects in between any of these stages, by the way. To do this, just throw in an effect in the effects slot where you want the process to be. Let's do this. The kick gets an EQ effect, then it goes into the compressor. After that, we will throw this chorus effect on it. And after that, we'll send this to the Fusion and have it come back home. There you go. Keep in mind, if you do put any effects into the insert where the last hardware is coming in, you may find that the effects and even the fader is not going to be applied in the recording. Take this obvious example here. I'm going to throw in a panning effect and send the signal to only one side. But when we record it, you'll see that this recording is on both sides and the signal is being recorded louder than what we heard. The reason why is because of this option here, the pre/post external recording setting. We have it set to external audio only, so it does not record anything other than what we hear coming out of the hardware. Since the effects from the previous insert were being sent into the Fusion, we are able to hear those effects being applied. So If you want these effects and even the fader and EQ to be included in the recording, you will have to select the option that works for you. In my case, the post-track option. Now we're going to get into the calibration stuff. This is for both the recorded signal as well as the timing. Starting off with the signal, we want what comes out to be exact signal that comes in. In order for us to do this, we'll have to set these inputs to have a unity gain with the outputs. See these knobs? Yeah, here's a tough pill to swallow. These aren't always calibrated perfectly or could be changed over time from wear and tear. It's best to recheck your calibration from time to time. So even if our knobs are equally at the lowest setting, we won't have an equal left and right signal. Make sure that the gear is bypassed so there is no influence on the hardware side to come into an end result. Open the 3X oscillator in FL Studio. Remove the volume of the second and the third signal. In the piano roll, let's give this a very long C6 note. Let's throw the signal into the empty insert and cut it off the master, output to 1 and 2 for the fusion, and in another empty insert, input 3 and 4. So when we hit play, yeah, we get this annoying sound. The good news is that we don't have to hear this sound. We can mute it in the master by clicking this green button here. So we got our two signals side by side, the out and the in. We have to adjust the input knobs to match up with the out level. This plugin here by TbProAudio is a free plugin that you could use to watch your peaks max. Link of this will be in the description. We could throw one of each of these into the inserts. This way we'll see what's exactly coming out and what's coming in. All we have to do now is adjust the knobs for 3 and 4 to match up the levels perfectly. If you overshoot the level, lower the knob and click on reset and try again slowly. Once they are both equal to each other, you'll have achieved what is called unity gain. Don't be scared, however, when you activate the gear and you're seeing two exactly different signals. Of course, though, what matters the most is that the left and the right signals are exactly the same before the gear comes in. As long as that is perfect, you'll be fine to record anything and adjust the overall level after. I'm going to set my mastering gear back up because I got some work to do. By the way, hit your boy up for mastering at justinomoe.com. This last part, not too difficult, lining stuff up. First off, we're going to want to make sure that our audio interface has the right buffer length size. So in the options, go to the audio settings, and then over here it'll say buffer length. If you click on Show ASIO panel, you will get a window for your audio interface's device, and you'll be able to change the buffer size. If you set it too low, you may run into underruns, which is over here. Those are pops and clicks. But if you run it too high, milliseconds of latency. You can see here it says 24 milliseconds, which makes the trail longer. So find the right setting that feels balanced for you. If you click on Show ASIO panel and nothing is showing up, it could be one of the two reasons. First off, the panel could already be open just behind FL Studio, so you would want to make sure that you minimize, and there it is. Another reason could be that FL Studio just doesn't recognize the ASIO panel for your device. Take, for example, my Pure 2 ASIO driver. If I click it, nothing happens. In this case, you would want to go to your software that you got when you downloaded the driver. In this case, it's called Pure 2 Launcher. So, okay, it's right here. And then for me, in my case, I would go to Settings, and I'll be able to change the buffer size. So if I hit 512, look up there where it says buffer length, it changes. So make sure you find one that's really good. It doesn't give you any audio glitches, and you'll be set there. Once you have your audio interface set, let's go ahead and start the process to try and sync it up. I have a kick drum, and I set it to 4. I'm going to drop it into the playlist like this. I'm going to set this for recording, highlight a little portion, hit record. What I'm going to do is set this to insert 3 where the kick is, and I'll mute that. This is so that we have a visual waveform that we can look at here. I know you could have just took it and dragged it in there, but whatever. Next, you'll want to make sure that the kick is actually being sent out to the gear and into the gear, so it shows up here, and make sure it is set on. And I am going to keep the master on for this segment. This is so we can hear both the kick and the gear at the same time. So notice if I pan this to the left and pan this to the right and hit play, the left side plays quicker because it's not in sync. 2 more things to look at. The second one would be down here. This is called the track latency. We do not have to worry about that one because that is not something we got to worry about. What we do have to worry about is this third one here called the input latency. Now this will determine how further ahead or behind our track will be once we finish recording. I'll show you a big drastic example. I'll set this to 1 beat and let's go ahead and record a sample here. All right, so you can see in this example, I forgot to take off this, so turn that off, make sure. But you can see that this recorded a whole beat behind, and it's not even lined up. So what we want to do is make sure we have the right settings for this. To do this, go into your options, audio settings, and take a note right here. It says 6 milliseconds. We'll use that as our starting point. So I'm going to go again, track latency. I'm going to click set in milliseconds, and I'm going to press 6. That's not a 6. There you go. Now if I hit record again and test this out. All right. And if I click this and drag it up, you'll see that it is very, very perfectly in line there. So yes, that's how you get this to line up in FL Studio when you record through the hardware gear.